again and welcome to the Memoir channel. Today I'm speaking with Sue Bavey. I'm not quite sure how to say it. We're going to have to find out. Anyway, we're going to be talking about her book, Lucky Jack. And it's from 1894 until 2000. And it is the memoirs of a World War I prisoner of war. So it's not actually Sue's memoir. It's a story about her grandfather. And I think she's written it as if he were writing it. But again, let's find out. All right. Well, hi, Sue.
Hi,
Welcome to the Memoir channel.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
And where exactly in the world are you?
I'm in Franklin, Massachusetts, which is just outside Boston.
But you sound very British.
Yes. Yeah, myself and my husband are both from England, and we came over here 20 years ago now,
Oh, wow.
for his job. And we originally thought, oh, we'll stay 3 years, and maybe come
3
back
years.
years. Yeah, but then we had kids, and once they get into the school system, it's quite difficult to move everybody
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Yeah, so we're
So
here
three
now.
years turned into 20.
Yeah, just like that.
Wow. All right. Well, okay. So we're going to talk about your book. We're going to talk. I know you've written a few, but I was thinking we're going to talk about Lucky Jack.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Is that a fine? Are you prepared for something
That
else?
is
I mean,
fine. I thought we were going to talk about that one. That's the new one,
oh,
Kookaburra.
okay. Well, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about Lucky Jack and then we'll jump
Okay,
onto that one too. But I was just kind of intrigued with that one because it's obviously about your grandfather
that's right. Yeah. Um,
who who lived for a very long time.
yeah,
I was
he lived
very
for
impressed.
106 years, spanning 3 centuries,
That's
because
amazing.
he was born in 1894 and passed away in 2000. So he just made it into the third century.
Incredible. It's incredible. And he sounds like such a character.
Yeah, he was an inspiration. He was always positive, and he had stories to tell all the time. He loved to entertain. He would get up and tell you a monologue or sing a song, tell jokes. At his 100th
Oh,
birthday party, he was the entertainment.
oh, I love him already. So,
Yeah,
how did you write this book about him? Because I saw you wrote it in the first person, as if it's him talking to you.
yeah, that's right. Because so what happened was, so my mum passed away 2 years ago, and a couple of years before that, I moved her from our family home into an apartment. And in doing that, I went through all of the things that were in her attic and
Mm-hmm.
found lots of scrapbooks. She used to keep everything. She was, a bit of a hoarder in some ways. And
Okay.
she had these scrapbooks which had all of, so I should probably go back further. So when he was 103, my granddad was the oldest newspaper columnist in the world.
I saw
Um,
that.
yeah, so the newspaper had been to his 100th birthday party and had interviewed him, and just the local newspaper in Lincoln
Mm-hmm.
where we were living at the time. And they'd sent the columnist, they'd sent him a few times to cover various different things to get Jack's opinion on things. And he'd
Sweet.
become a bit of a beloved person for the
It's
newspaper
it's
readers.
very heartwarming.
So they
Lovely.
invited him to do a weekly column, and this newspaper guy called Jason had gone along each week and interviewed him. So one week it might be about his opinion on, politics, or tell me about your cars, tell me about your experience during the war, all kinds of different subjects. And it went on for 2 years each week. And so my mum had cut all of these columns out of the newspaper and put them into scrapbooks. And they were in the attic. So I found them and I was like, oh, this really, I really want my kids to know all of this. I want to put it somehow, get it online, so that they can read it in the future.
Yeah.
Um, so I got my mom, because she was in England and I was in America. So once I'd gone back home, I asked her to take photos of each of the pages of the scrapbook and send them to me. So she did that, and then I transcribed them. But because they were written for a newspaper column, they weren't really in a fit state to go into like a book chapter. You know, they were like, because of the way he'd been interviewed, there might be a column that was all about cars, but it would flit about from like different times, different cars that he'd had throughout his life. And so I wanted to do it chronologically. So I had to kind of put everything together in a pot and then like try and separate it all, put it in date
So,
order.
okay. And how long did all of that take you in the long run then?
Well, I think probably 2 years, and it was during
Mhm.
COVID, and I'd stopped working during COVID because I was working in marketing, and my boss had said, you know, he didn't want anyone working in the office during that time.
Sure.
And then he seemed to find it very difficult to find things that I could do from home. So I was in a bit of a weird situation, and I thought, right, well, I'm going to take this time and work on the book.
I love that.
Yeah,
I'm amazed how many people are saying that COVID was the reason they
I
started writing the
know.
book. I'm like, all right, well done,
I know.
well
It's
done,
quite
COVID. It's a plus for COVID.
some positive things definitely came
Yeah,
out.
the only,
Yeah,
probably the
certainly
only one.
in the memoir community. I watched the interview with Alison and
Hmm.
Birth recently. I think they were both in the same boat with the
Yeah,
writing things up during COVID.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
okay, and then so you'd finished in about 2 years, and then how did you go about publishing it?
so as well as doing that, my hobby is as a book blogger. So I write reviews for people of their books, and I'd been doing that
Mhm.
during COVID as well. And I'd made quite a few connections with different authors whose books I'd reviewed
Mhm.
on my blog, and you know, I'd helped publicize things a bit and done some cover reveals for people. And there was one author whose husband published his books, and they were looking to sort of just widen their net a little
Oh,
bit, and he
perfect.
wanted me to be his guinea pig. Or he asked, would I be, you know, would I be happy for him to be for me to be
Yeah,
his guinea pig, and for him
perfect.
to format the book for me and publish it. So I was really lucky.
Ah, so wait, now this reminds me because you just put out a call today, I believe, for the Valentine stories. Was that you?
Right. Well,
Yes.
yeah, it was actually earlier than today, but
And
yes.
is that with
um
the same publisher then?
It is going
Ah,
to be,
okay.
yeah. So both my books are published through him, and I also put together I have got 3 books, but the second one I tend to think of as my dad's book because it's all of his work, and I just kind of edited it and published
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't really think of that as a book that I've written.
Let me ask you a little bit more about Lucky Jack. So how well did this
Yeah.
book do, and who was the audience? I imagine that elderly people must have been drawn towards it because it's got so many memories for them as well.
Yeah, so that it's been really well received amongst people who like I did a reading at the senior centre in town, and they really liked it. And
Love that.
yeah, it's mostly people who are into memoirs, or people who like war or true stories, you know. And
Hmm.
a lot of the reviews have said, oh, it's like going down the pub and listening, you know, you feel like you're sitting with him listening to his
Yeah.
story. um, which was why I wrote it in the first person as well, because I wanted to bring that feeling across. That
Yeah.
was
That
when
voice.
you read the columns, you felt like he was talking to you, and I wanted that, you know, the same kind of cozy feeling.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but I did have to embellish them quite a lot as well with other detail, which we have a family historian in England who decided to do a lot of work on the family tree, and he had interviewed Jack, who was his I'm trying to think, I think it would have been his uncle.
Right.
He's my second cousin twice removed.
It gets so complicated, doesn't it?
I know, it's very complicated. But he had interviewed Jack and his sisters, and he'd kept all the material, and he had a whole trove of photographs from,
Wow.
there's a few photographs in there that were taken in the prisoner of war camp that he was in the First World War, which is quite rare to
Mm.
see, you know, photos from inside the camp. Um, Yeah, so he was really useful as a resource.
And I know I read there too that I think there was he had 9 brothers and sisters. I mean, he was from a huge family, your grandfather.
Yeah, I think it was 12.
12. Ah.
I can't remember. It's so embarrassing,
Well,
isn't it?
your family tree must be huge, because I mean
Yeah.
that's a lot. But is there possibly a part in that book that you would maybe want to read for us, or would you prefer to read from
I can do either.
your book?
Yeah, I can do either or both. So when I do a reading of Lucky Jack, there's 2 pieces that I kind of choose from depending on what you want. So there's the part where he was actually caught, shall we say, and went to a prisoner of war camp. So I could read that, or else there's a kind of an amusing anecdote from when he was older.
Well, let's go with the when he was caught. That sounds quite
Okay.
a high drama. Let's do that one.
Okay, so that's chapter 17, a nasty birthday surprise. On my 24th birthday, March the 21st, 1918, at around 5 a.m., a terrific noise began. The German barrage had started. You could hear nothing but gunfire. It shattered my eardrum. 8 of us, all snipers, including my mate Charlie, were in the extra trench, which had been dug by the Royal Engineers. We had been in the trench since the previous night. It was quite some way beyond our front line, and we had been given orders to keep it defended at all costs. Suddenly, the Germans started pouring out from their trenches. As German soldiers were shot down, they were replaced by others. They advanced towards our front by hiding in small pockets, which they had weakened by constant bombing, not in a straight line as we had expected. They were shelling heavily to the left and right of us, but somehow miraculously not on us. Waves of German soldiers flowed past us, just yards in front of us. We could see a group of 50 soldiers and another group the same distance behind us, but luckily they didn't come anywhere near us as we hid, terrified in our trench. Watching them, the British soldiers were in full retreat, and from our slit in the ground, all we could see was the backs of the German soldiers as they continued forging ahead. We stayed in our trench like that, surrounded by all of our equipment and everything we owned. We had expected to be in the thick of the fighting, and instead we were hiding in this small trench. At around 11 a.m., a group of Prussian soldiers appeared, part of the mopping up party sent to finish off or round up any survivors who had been missed the first time the soldiers went through. They threw some hand grenades, which were called tater mashers, into the trench, which luckily missed me and then came rushing down into our trench. By some good fortune, neither Charlie nor I were killed. We decided we had no choice but to put up our hands and surrender under the circumstances. By now it was around 11:30 a.m. and we had managed to hold the trench since 5 a.m. We were terrified and completely exhausted from the adrenaline and extreme emotion. Frank Richards had been hit by a piece of tin between his neck and shoulders, and he was bleeding and holding his head. One of the Prussian guards was a big, fierce-looking man with a moustache. He jumped into the trench next to me with his bayonet fixed and pointed at my stomach. I was convinced my last hour had come. I was absolutely terrified. I said goodbye and waited for his deadly thrust. Instead of thrusting his bayonet into me, I heard him say softly, almost gently, "Zigaretten, Kamerad." He wanted cigarettes. I took out my cigarette tin from my pocket where I carried some ready-rolled cigarettes and offered it to him. He took a few cigarettes and then pointed at my equipment and said, "Los." We had to leave all of our possessions and equipment there on the ground and follow them out of the trench. They then walked us back to their lines. What an absolute feeling of relief that was, although we were filled with trepidation as to what would follow. We had heard about the maltreatment of prisoners of war by the Germans and had never really dared to consider what it would be like if it happened to us. We knew prisoners were often sent down coal mines and felt fearful for our future.
Wow, I mean, that is amazing, because he's 24.
Yeah.
He's so young. I mean,
Yeah.
and to just be surrounded by, I mean, I could have died in this second, I could have died in that second, I could have died now. I mean, that's so.
Yeah. And as a sniper, he was like going out into no man's land frequently, trying to spy on what they were up to on the other side, which, you know, I didn't really know any of these stories until I wrote this.
Wow.
So it was really interesting for me to learn more about my family, and, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like he escaped death several times in like the space of a few hours there.
Yeah,
So,
and there were lots of other instances as well where one of the things I've written on the in the blurb, I think it is that he was buried alive twice, because not only was he buried alive by a grenade going off near him and like being covered in all of the debris, and luckily someone saw his feet and helped him get out. But then later in life, there was a hurricane in the south of England, which is a highly unlikely thing.
What?
In the 1980s. It was extremely rare, and the roof came down on him, and he was like lying in bed and woke up surrounded by debris, and his
Lord.
wardrobe had moved in front of his door, so he couldn't get out very easily. So yeah, he had a few
Well,
lucky escapes.
I see why it's called Lucky Jack, because yeah. Well, I mean, he sounds like he was a wonderful character. I mean, yeah.
Yes,
I'm really
yeah,
glad that you were able to put all of that together and, you know, have something that, like you said, that you can hand down to your kids and they can hand to their kids, and that it keeps it alive. And yeah, it's beautiful. That's a
yeah.
very, yeah. Okay, so let's move on to your next book. So you have to tell me the title because I don't
Yes.
know.
Okay. It's Kookaburras. I don't know if that comes across as mirror, does it to you?
I
Mirror.
think it might be backwards.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Kookaburras,
Kookaburras.
Puppers, and Kangaroos. And this is my mum,
Uh-huh.
Elizabeth Isle. And she went to Australia again when she was 24, which I've just realized that's kind of a weird coincidence. But yeah, she was a Yorkshire, she lived in Yorkshire. Her family was a farming family. So she'd grown up in Yorkshire, gone to boarding school, and then become a farm secretary. So it was quite a mundane life.
Mhm.
And then someone she was working with suggested that the two of them go to Australia, just like that. And she got very excited about the idea of it. And it was a program called the Populate or Perish scheme, where the Australian government took your passport and you had to stay for a minimum of 2 years and work and basically help develop Australia.
Did she have to populate? Was it
Well, no, I don't think so. I think the fact that she was moving over there was the populate part.
Okay.
But a number of people did that, and they only paid £10 for their ticket. And
What
they
a
were known as
deal.
£10 poms, they were known as. And
Okay,
a
so the
lot,
deal was they had to go and then they
yeah,
had to stay there for 2 years and they had to work,
yeah.
and they didn't, it cost them £10 to get over there, but then they weren't, I mean, they
They
weren't
were
given
on
any
their own.
subsidies then.
No,
Then
they were on
okay.
their own. They had to have someone to sponsor them just in case it all went wrong. So someone in Australia who was willing to kind of say, yeah, put me down as the contact or whatever. But they were expected to work to either stay or work to be able to pay for their passage home. And they had to stay for 2 years. Then they were given back their passport after 2 years, and it was up to them. They could either stay or leave. And a lot of people stayed. A lot of the people,
I've
over
never ever heard of this before. That's pretty
there.
amazing.
It turns out that my husband's uncle is also a £10 pom, and he's still over there. He lives in Melbourne, I think, or Brisbane. I can't remember which. Yeah, but there's a number of people who've actually seen an ad or something for my book and have got in touch and said, "Oh, I was a £10 pom, and I'm living in Sydney now," or whatever. So there's a whole community of
So she obviously did her 2 years and then she said that was enough.
Yeah, well, she stayed for 3 years. After
Ah,
the 2 years, she went to New Zealand because she had a passport again, so she was able to travel, and she
okay.
wanted to go to New Zealand. And she traveled all around Australia during the 2 years, but she was working. She worked her way around. she went to New Zealand, and she saw all kinds of different things. She went to Bondi Beach, and she went to the Great Barrier Reef, and then in New Zealand she went to the glaciers and the hot pools, and kinds of photos in here, because it was during the 60s. There's lots of photos with like really nice cars and things like that. And there's a picture of Times Square as well from on her journey home. She stopped at New York and a number of other places as well, which I found that quite interesting, seeing all the photos, especially because we don't live that far from New York, so we can drive there in 3.5 hours. So seeing the difference with the photos from the 60s,
the time period,
yeah. Someone suggested that it was like a combination of armchair travel and time travel. Reading this book.
I like that. That's pretty catchy. Yeah, it's quite nostalgic when you see those old photos. It's always like makes the past always seem so gentle and lovely, but I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah, and that book, it's a lot of it is letters and passages from travel diaries. So these are all her letters that she wrote.
Wow.
Email letters, and she wrote them like 2 or 3 a week for 3 years.
And who was she writing to?
Her parents.
Her parents.
Sister. Yeah, okay. Back in Yorkshire.
Okay.
And then there's her travel diaries as well, which were like these little books crammed full of this writing with dates, and there's not really a lot of detail in there. So
I feel like you've done these labor of love for both your grandfather and your mother, because that's
yeah, I enjoy it though. You know, it's interesting getting to the bare bones of things.
How long did the second book take you then?
I think probably about 18 months.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, they took a similar amount of time, really. Yeah. I was lucky that I had all of this information I was able to have access to all of it.
And you finished it fairly recently?
It was published in December.
Oh, very recently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's new. And there's also a prequel, which was told, it's my mum's childhood before that point. So going up to that point, because the person that she was going to be going with actually backed out on her at the last minute. So she ended up going on her own. But the whole kind of decision making, well, should I go, should I not, and all of that's all in the prequel, which is it can be downloaded from my website for free if anybody's interested in that.
That's a nice idea. And that is quite brave of her to go by herself at 24.
Yeah, especially at that, at that time. She'd only been in Yorkshire. She'd not really left the county that much from what
and it's not like everyone was jumping on planes nonstop like we do today.
No, she went on a boat, and it took her 3 weeks to get there. She went through Gibraltar and Italy, and they stopped all over the place. There's like lots of stops on the way, and she was open to anything. My mum, she was really like one of these people that if you offered her the opportunity to do some kind of activity, she would always do it. So there's quite a lot of different things.
Well, and I guess Lucky Jack was her father, so a bit of that rubbed off, I guess.
Well, actually, no, he was my father's father.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think they were similar. I do think they were similar in personality, more than my father was, because they had a lot in common, definitely. Maybe that's why my dad liked her so much. I don't know.
Oh, that's lovely. So now, what are some of your favorite memoirs? Like, well, I know these aren't actually memoirs, but they're still
they kind of
true stories. Yes.
Yeah, and I think they can be called. There's been a bit of back and forth about whether or not you can call them memoirs, and I looked at the definition, and I think if you're a close family member, you can call it a memoir. Apparently,
okay. I mean, it's still. I think there's. I mean, I was looking it up myself because I was like, what are the parameters? And it said, memoir is when it's your story, and a memoir is something. It could also just be a section of time. Like, I'm just going to write about this episode in my life,
then Kookaburras does fit that.
Right, and then autobiography is when you write your entire lifespan, and it's more historical and chronological.
Yeah,
And
so
then a biography is when you write somebody else's. But
Lucky Jack is a biography, and it won the Gold Award for biography from the Reader's
yes,
Favourite last year. So
yeah, congratulations. Well
yeah,
done.
very exciting. Went to Miami with my friends.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So, okay, so you've just put this one out. So what are your plans? What do you have coming up for you? Anything?
At the moment, as you said, I've put out a call for submissions for an anthology of different stories about, well, it's called Not Marriage Material, and
Mhm.
it's going to be true stories that people, the one that got away, or the one that you wish had got away, or you'd got away from, that kind of thing.
Like the
And
lucky escape, yes.
yeah, exactly. Kind of light-hearted. And I'm hoping to get that one published in February next year. So
Mhm.
we've got until November to collect together pieces from people and then go through them all and publish it.
Oh, I mean, I love that idea too. So I know your friend is publishing, so you've got this publisher connection, but is he helping you promote and do some marketing, or was that pretty much
No,
left up to
not
you?
yeah, that's left up to me. He just basically presses the button.
He's helped you do the formatting and all
Yes,
of that,
exactly.
and
And
the
also
covers.
he's a graphic designer as well. So he's helped with the cover. Like the first cover, Lucky Jack, was designed by my daughter when she was 16. I gave her
Hmm.
the photos and she put that one together. Ooh, that way.
Yeah, lovely.
But yeah, that was really nice to keep that, that she did that. And then my publisher helped me with this one.
Hmm.
He has a graphic design training, so that's
Yeah.
really helpful.
And why are they K's there? Cuppas?
Sorry?
Is it with the? Oh, it isn't a K. Sorry, I'm reading it
No,
wrong.
I was going
Or
for the
cuppas and kangaroos.
alliteration.
Yes,
I like alliteration.
yes. No, I do too. But I like the 10-pound palm as well. That's a
Yeah, well, I was going to call it that
yeah.
initially. That was my working title. And then there's a Netflix. Well, I'm not sure if it's on Netflix. I think it might be, but there's a TV series and it's been on in England.
Huh.
And it's about people who were 10-pound palms and their stories. And a lot of the stories were quite negative. They had horrible experiences because, I mean, you can imagine if it
Well,
didn't go well,
the
it could
the
be
thought of
horrendous.
someone taking your passport is
Exactly.
pretty
He was up
horrific.
there for 2 years. Yeah, so I kind of decided that I didn't really want to be connected to that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
changed the title from that.
No,
Yeah.
I think you're right in doing that. Well, is there a part you would like to read from that one then? Just a short little paragraph or
I could read
something.
one of the letters, one of her letters home.
Sure.
Yeah. So this one is from the 23rd of April, 1961, and she was writing in Furnisdale, Mandura. My dear Moms and Pop, well, here I am again and actually writing this down at Furnisdale, as we, the Jameses and me, came down yesterday afternoon again, although it was very much up in the air as to whether we would come or not, since the weather has not been too good. Anyway, at the last minute, we decided to come down. As soon as we got here, we had a cup of tea and then went down to the river to try our luck fishing, but we didn't get anything. We had dinner and then went into Mandura and fished for prawns from the jetty, which was quite an experience. Evidently, this is the time the king prawns, which are 6 inches or so long, go out to sea, and they can be seen best at night by kerosene lamp. So when we got down there was a row of lights all hanging over the edge of the landings under the bridge, and a row of boats beyond them. We stayed there until after 10 p.m., but only caught 8 prawns, which were whoppers. 2 made a good sandwich for supper. After prawning, Mrs. James had another go at fishing in the river and caught some cobbler. I woke up in the middle of the night to hear a couple of mice running around in the chest of drawers near my bed, and the wretched things seemed to keep me awake for ages. I found one in the morning in my pink sweater. Ugh. There was quite a frost last night, but it's been nice today. I've been knitting madly in between watching Mrs. James fish and going for a walk up to the old flour mill down the river. In the early settlers' days, the mill was attacked by locals who tried to steal the flour, as was the one in Perth. The latter has been reconstructed and made into a museum and is one of the places I still want to visit and take a photo of. The other day, I put down my £3 deposit for the Trans-Australia train. The remaining approximately £13 to Adelaide has to be paid within 2 months. The trains look really super from the brochure and from what I've heard, so I shall have to tell you all about it. I've booked second class to go on the 23rd of August, so it should give me time to see George and family again and do some odd jobs before I go. I went to play squash as usual last Monday and enjoyed it. There were only 4 of us this time. On Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday, I stayed in and did odd jobs. And on Thursday, I went over to Auntie's for the evening, which was nice. What are the favourite fashion colours for this summer? The colours here at present are autumn shades, mustard, tomato, red, browns and dull greens. They look very nice, but there isn't a great deal of choice. And so most people almost look alike. The girls here seem to spend no end of money on clothes. What did you think of the Russian triumph with a man in space? Good for them, I thought, but I wish America could have been first. Hope all's well at home. Much love, Elizabeth. So you can see it's kind of a combination of like, what she wants to know about fashion and,
Yeah,
and
no, it's really funny because you think that's how it's almost like a free-flowing thought exercise, right? Because
yeah,
you're just writing
totally.
away and
Totally. And you wouldn't edit it back then because, you've
yeah,
written on the airmail letter, so
yeah.
you can't go back and change
It's actually
anything.
really sweet that that's how we used to communicate with each other. Like
Yeah.
I quite like that.
Yeah, and
There's
there's a
something
few
lovely about it.
letters where she's making comments about all the differences, between Australia and the way people live, and
Yeah, yeah.
she's quite opinionated in some ways.
Oh no, it's lovely.
That was
Um,
really nice to get to know her at that age, because I didn't know her when she was young, obviously, so
yeah,
it was really nice to get to know her like that.
yeah. No, that really is. So, by the way, I wasn't quite sure how to say your surname.
Oh, it's Bavey. It rhymes with gravy.
Oh, yeah, I think I messed it up, but
Oh, that's
baby.
okay.
Okay, Sue
we
baby.
we get we get things spelt wrong, and we get Bailey and Basie, and once we even had something addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Barnyard, which is completely different.
Uh, so, do you have any advice for anyone that's looking to write a book or write a memoir?
I think just write everything that comes into your head, and you can always organize it later, and you can get help from an editor, to
Hmm.
if you don't think you're good enough at writing, then just that's fine, someone's going to help you.
Did
If
you
there
get some help from an editor? Did you have
um,
someone?
I have my husband's uncle who lives in Australia is a proofreader, so he helped me with that, and I
Right.
proofread as well. But I don't think you should proofread your own work.
Yeah,
Um,
it's hard.
you're always going to miss things. So yeah, so I had him proofread it, and I also had a couple of early readers from the We Love Memoirs group, the Facebook group, which
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
anyone's interested in joining that, they should, because it's a really good supportive group.
It is
Um,
indeed.
yeah, so some of them read it for me in the early stages and made some really useful comments. One of which was to take out the prequel that I mentioned before, the like her early years leading up to going to Australia. That was in Kookaburras to begin with, and I had a couple of people saying, well, you get to like 25% through the book before she's even gone to Australia, so it doesn't quite sit well, so I decided to take
Hmm.
that out and make it into a prequel instead,
Yeah,
off the back of what they said.
yeah, and I mean that's quite a big change.
Yeah,
So good, good,
but I
good.
think it's a lot better now.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck with it.
Thank you very
Well, with all of your books, and I mean, I feel like the Lucky Jack one almost has a chance of being picked up to be made into a film or something because his life sounds like it was quite fascinating,
That would be great if
wouldn't
it,
it?
yeah.
I mean, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for chatting with me,
Thank you
and
very much
I
for
really
the
enjoyed
chat.
this. And I will put there's do you have a website?
Yes, it's www.suebavey.com.
Okay, so I'll put that underneath here so people can see how to get hold of you, and then they can get your books on Amazon and
Yeah,
probably all the usual ways.
just Amazon really, and I write as S Bavey rather than Sue Bavey because
Okay.
someone ages ago suggested that would be a good idea because it was like a war book that I was writing, and there's quite a lot of sexism apparently amongst
Oh,
that.
okay. You have to be a
So
man to understand it. Okay.
I thought, okay, well, I'll just take that out of the
All
equation.
right. All right. S baby barnyard.
Barnyard.
And are they ebooks or are they, or can they get paperbacks as well?
There's paperbacks and ebooks, yeah, both.
Okay.
I haven't done an audio book yet, although I am thinking that I might do one of I can't really do Lucky Jack because I think it would sound really strange if I read that one. But
It would have to be a male voice.
yeah, or else I would just do it. I don't know whether
Well,
I
they
need to
have they have AI generated voices now. You could,
yeah, that's true.
it's a new thing now, so I don't know.
I wonder how emotional they are. I don't know.
That's a good question. That is a good question.
And see, but yeah, I might do kookaburras though, because there is a local TV station that lets you record things if you want. So
Yeah,
go
that'd
and
be
see.
fun. And
Yeah,
you read really nicely, and I think you have a lovely accent, so I think that really helps.
thank
So
you.
anyway, all right. Well, best of luck to you, and thank you so much. All
Thank
right.
you again.
Bye.
Bye.